Hello, my name is Martin Kuppinger. I'm founder and principal analyst at KuppingerCole Analysts. KuppingerCole Analysts is an analyst company headquartered in Germany with people in the US, the UK, Germany, and Australia. And our focus is on identity and access management and cybersecurity. So we don't do everything, but what we do very much into detail. And KuppingerCole, amongst other things, is the host of the European Identity and Cloud Conference 2022, which will run mid-May in Berlin again and also be available online. And what I'd like to do today is to share some of our thoughts about where is identity and access management, consumer identity management, privileged access management, and other topics, where are these evolving? And I brought one slide with me, which is our identity fabric paradigm. We've developed this over the past couple of years in various advisories with our analysts, with our advisors, and so on. And it is also frequently updated. And basically, the idea of this identity fabric is to sort of provide a frame for rethinking, modernizing, evolving identity and access management as a set of capabilities, services, and technologies that are required to do what identity management is obliged to do. And what it needs to do is, at the end of the day, a very simple thing. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, there are different types of identities. There is the workforce, as we have been focusing on for whatever the past 2 decades, more or less. But there are also business partners, there are customers, there are consumers, there are services which have an identity. Think about robotic process automation or other stuff. There are devices, there are things like on the factory floor, devices like a phone or something else. And for services, we also see more and more cloud services and services you develop in your agile IT. And all these have identities. And at the end of the day, the job of identity and access management is super simple, at least super simple to describe, which is provide seamless, yet controlled and secure access for every service, every identity, every consumer, whatever, to every application and service. So on the right-hand side, you see the digital services, you see the applications, traditional ones, you see platforms, the infrastructure, legacy IT, whatever. And the job of identity and access management is to enable everyone and everything to access what is needed, as long as this is allowed, as long as this is okay. So it is about the enablement and it's about the security. And for doing so, you need a set of capabilities. And these capabilities are about managing the identities, managing the entitlements, managing the access, managing the risk, and certain additional services like securely sharing information, like managing customer data, integrating with customer data platforms, and many more. So we have on the the left-hand side of the center of this graphic, we have common capabilities. And when you look at your own identity and access management, it is very important to understand which types of identities you have to deal with today and in future. Which types of services do you have to provide access to today and in future? And which capabilities do you have and which capabilities will you need in future? So how is this list of capabilities evolving? Where are your gaps? All that is something you can do quite easily based on data. This is something what we, for instance, when we look at our advisory teams, what our advisory teams are doing regularly with our clients, guiding them through this process, helping them to understand where they stand and where the gaps are and what they need. These capabilities then are grouped in services, like a service for managing the identities. Maybe there are also multiple services for managing different types of identities, for managing entitlements, for managing the access. That might be, again, split into managing human access versus managing API-based access of things, of services, of devices, the management of access risks, and more. And then we have the tools that provide these services, like Identity Governance and Administration, IGA, like our access management tools, like privileged access management tools that help us in mitigating the access risk of highly privileged users, like consumer identity management and customer data platform, CDP, for managing consumer and customer access and the data and the specifics of these. So there are usually some tools, and usually it is that there are 2, 3, maybe 4 core tools that are used as the foundation for this identity fabric, and usually a few other tools for very specialized capabilities. Ideally, these tools are modern tools, modern architected. So we're talking about microservice architectures. We're talking about container-based deployments. We're talking about as a service here. That should be what you focus on when moving forward. But it might also be that you say, okay, I can't modernize everything in one step, which is quite normal. You not even should do that. You should sort of define what are your priorities, your biggest gaps, and then do one step after the other. So when you modernize, you will set your priorities, and you will need to be able to set a focus and say, okay, maybe I use my legacy PAM tool for a while before I update it, because it's way more important to make a step forward in access management. You also, this concept is very important. This concept is targeted at serving both the demand of today's digital organizations, digital businesses, but also dealing with the reality you have in identity management. The reality is that you not only have at the top of this graphic all these modern SaaS services and digital services, but you also have at the bottom, you have your legacy applications, and you will frequently have a legacy identity management. And one of the core elements of this concept is to say there's a connection to these. These are served as well. And it might be that you go through your legacy IAM, that you use your existing identity management and then say, I modernize into a modern identity fabric on top of it. And on the other side, you have on the top, you have these connections to SaaS and related services, but also to the digital services you're creating. And this is important if you look at the 2 arrows on the top. So one is going from identity management to the applications and services, as we are used to do. And the other goes from the digital services to your identity management through an identity API layer. What is super essential to be good in the future is that you support both directions, managing, for instance, users and entitlements and SaaS services, but also providing APIs where your development teams for your digital services can consume identity capabilities through an abstraction layer, the identity API layer. And so in a nutshell, what you see here is a picture that provides you a perspective on how could your identity and access management look in future. And the way towards it is understanding, as I've said, which types of identities you have today and future, which types of services you need to deal with, which capabilities do you have, which are good, which do you need to expand, how do you deal with your legacy applications, shall you better integrate some legacy IAM instead of whatever, recreating a connectivity to a mainframe. If you know this will be retired, it might be better to say, okay, I leave the legacy in place until this is done. Or you say, I move it to my new system. Supporting all the new SaaS service and digital services, but in 2 directions. Outwards, managing these, and inbound, providing your identity capabilities so that the digital service can say, okay, I need to authenticate a user. I need to store certain data about a user. I need to do that and that. And all that should be available via API. What I strongly believe is, from our experience, that it's latest time to really rethink what you have in identity and access management. And this is what I had on that slide. So what you really should do to come to an end, sit down, step back, and look at what you have, and maybe compare it with this graphic and say, how can I go there? How can I move there? As I've said there, this is just a high-level perspective. You can look at our additional research. We have an extensive amount of research around these and related themes. So just have a look at what we are doing here. And as I've said, also don't miss to visit our European Identity and Cloud Conference in Berlin, either on site or virtually. Thank you very much for listening to me, and stay well.